name is Мэттью Stevens, and I'm the Research Librarian at Sydney Living Museums, here in Sydney, Australia. Sydney Living Museums is a state government-funded organisation that cares for 12 historic sites, including the World Heritage listed convict building, Hyde Park Barracks. We also manage a number of house museums, some of which contain the original family's collection of furniture, books, sheet music, and personal archives. Last year, I was curator of the Songs of Home exhibition shown at the Museum of Sydney, an exhibition that told the story of early domestic music making in Sydney during the first 70 years of European settlement, up until around 1860. It gave us a great opportunity to add more context to the large collection of music contained in our house museums. The object I'd like to share with you today is a sheet music publication of almost mythical status. It consists of 2 pages of music with a rather decorative cover and was published in London in around 1830. So what makes this music so special? We acquired this rare publication 4 years ago from private collector Stuart Simons. Until I visited Stuart to look at his collection of 1,500 printed pieces of music, no one in living memory had seen this composition. I was in the company of our music advisor, Dr. Graham Skinner, and he almost fell off his chair when he discovered the score called Currency Lasses in one of the larger bound volumes. Graham explained that music historians had always known about the piece from newspaper reports published in the 1820s, but the name of the composer was not mentioned. Yet another mystery. It is considered one of the first musical compositions written by a European in Australia, and is regularly mentioned in histories of Australian music. We have seen a few early European transcriptions of the songs of Australia's Aboriginal people, but original colonial compositions from around this time are virtually non-existent. So what did Graham see when he turned the page that revealed this long-lost missing piece of music? At the top of the page is a kangaroo. You can't get much more Australian than that. Next to the animal is a large rock framed by Australian bush, and on it are carved the words Advance Australia. In the foreground is a paint palette, a page of musical score, and possibly a clarinet. The full title of the piece is Currency Lasses, an Admired Quadrille, composed by a lady at Sydney. And the score, composed for solo piano, reveals a simple tune typical of the British dance tunes of the time. Even more interesting is the attribution to a lady at Sydney. While we did not have the composer's name, it seemed that the earliest surviving Australian colonial composition was by a woman. At the top of the page is scrawled a signature that has been left unreadable by some zealous rebinding. It belonged to a Miss L something, and we haven't discovered who the original owner was. While I was busy organising the first performance of this new discovery, Graham Skinner went hunting for the name of our first female composer. After considerable digging, Graham pulled together significant evidence pointing to a musician called Tempest Margaret Paul, the wife of a Sydney merchant who is the leading female amateur singer in the first public concerts presented in Sydney in 1826. As well as singing in duets and glees, she was also soprano soloist, accompanying herself on the piano, most notably in the first Australian public performances of that recent London hit, Home Sweet Home. We think Tempest took the manuscript with her on a trip to London in the late 1820s and gave it to publisher Joseph Cross. She must have brought copies back with her to Australia, but we've been unable to find any other copies in Australia or Britain, so the print run must have been pretty small. So Sydney Living Museums is fortunate to hold the only surviving copy of Australia's earliest known colonial composition, and the earliest composition by a woman. A musical myth made flesh and blood. Rather than simply look at the printed page, the best way to appreciate this object is to hear it. So here is historical keyboardist James Doig performing The Currency Lasses at one of our house museums, Elizabeth Bay House.